Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe.
Why Chris Jericho should go all in. I'm Ollie Davis. This is Luke Owen. Welcome to WrestleRamble, where today we're going to have a look at everyone's favourite Renaissance man. Is that he keeps reinventing himself?
Yes.
And this is Chris Jericho, of course. He's so unique in that he can show up at Raw 25 in WWE and be goofy list Chris Jericho with Elias. And just 3 weeks prior, he was a completely different person. He was super violent Chris Jericho against Kenny Omega. And then he turned up at the Greatest Royal Rumble. And now, most recently, he won the Intercontinental title last Saturday against Tetsuya Naito in New Japan's Dominion show.
And the other side of him, he's also businessman Chris Jericho, operating cruises and whatnot.
And the podcast, he's got a little network, hasn't he?
Fozzy.
Yeah. Wow, he does have fingers in a lot of pies. And
well, the acting thing didn't really work out for him, did it? So he's just got to create other pies to put his finger in.
Leave his acting alone.
Hey, I'm not even a dick.
I like that one cameo. That's good.
Just like it, he tried it. It didn't work out. So he's like, "Cool, that didn't work. I'm just going to try other things instead."
He's a creative man. Oh, whoa.
We are 2 minutes in, and I've already done that.
For podcast listeners, that is Luke whacking his mug of tea against the microphone.
So excited to talk about Chris Jericho.
So, Chris Jericho has said this week on an interview with Inside the Ropes, they've got a bunch of interviews up with him when he came over for their speaking tour. All of them are really, really interesting. And in this one clip, he reveals why he wouldn't go all in, and likewise why he turned down New Japan's upcoming show at the Cow Palace, which is like a G1 Climax special, they're calling it. And that's because it's two things I got from it. It's because he doesn't want to slap the face of Vince McMahon, who he obviously feels tremendous loyalty to, by wrestling for another promotion on Vince's home turf in the United States. And also, did you listen to the bit about how he prices himself?
Yes, where he said, because he said, I get calls from independent promoters all the time. Like, I'm getting 6 calls a day from different promoters. But no one can really, afford me. I can't just lower my value. And that was the other thing he said about All In. He said that to do that, he'd have to lower down his value, and it's something he's not prepared to do.
And I really, really admire that. And, a man who's just done all the things that we've listed off, that should come as no surprise. And I don't think anyone's got ill will towards him for not doing all that. As soon as he leaves WWE, I'm going to do every indie show and these, because not only does it make sense from a business standpoint for him, it certainly makes sense from a physical standpoint. He's in his mid-40s, right? Mm-hmm. Why would you want to throw yourself around just for 500 people in a sort of
a bingo hall?
A bingo hall, yeah. I was trying to... An armoury.
I was going to say, I don't like to use the term a bingo hall because it's seen as quote-unquote derogatory term. But actually, I quite like going to shows in quote-unquote bingo halls.
School halls.
School halls, yeah, totally.
Yeah, stuff that isn't arenas. It's a lot more intimate.
It's 30 people.
But you can understand why Jericho doesn't do that. And because if he was to do all those dates, in 3 months' time, when Jericho shows up again, we won't be as, oh my god, Jericho's back.
That's exactly it. I went to a wrestling show that was not too far from my hometown of Reading, and it was in front of about 25 people, I'd argue, and Billy Gunn was on the cards. And it was almost like oh no, oh Billy, what happened, mate? So I can appreciate where Jericho is coming from there. But when he does, you look at the shows that he's done this year, Raw 25, Greatest Royal Rumble, Wrestle Kingdom 12, and Dominion. It's wow, those are 4 massive shows that you have done there. He's never lowered his value. I would argue, though, that doing All In doesn't lower his value at all.
This is the part of the argument that it comes on to. Yes, so explain why.
Well, it's because it's a huge cultural event within at least within the wrestling world. It's a massive event. It's going to be seen, it's going to be watched by a lot of people. It's sold out 10,000 seats in less than half an hour, as Cody will very proudly tell you, and it's the first non-WWE event to sell out that amount of seats since WCW, that's nearly 20 years ago.
Huge accolade.
A huge accolade. So, being a part of that, it's not it's it's 150 people in an armory. No, it says 10,000 people at the biggest independent show of all time. It's I think that's a pretty big show.
So to play devil's advocate, You're All In, you're Cody and the Young Bucks, the organisers. They've already sold out. Why would they spend money on Jericho? And I totally get that argument. You shouldn't spend money on Jericho because you're already operating on a massive profit. Like, why would you? Now I'm thinking longer term. And it's exactly what we spoke about. If CM Punk was to turn up, which, I feel that's less and less likely the more he says, I hate wrestling.
I can't believe you brought it into it as like a possibility the first time round.
I know. I just want him back so much.
I know you do. You want him back?
It really is. Like, CM Punk will say, I hate wrestling, I'm never coming back. And it'll cut, like, just imagine it cutting to me after reading that transcript. There's a chance.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Exactly. I don't know why. And, like, we're wrestling fans. So many people have said they're done with wrestling, but honestly, after that trial and after the UFC defeat again, seeing him in interviews, I'm just like, yeah, I mean, he probably won't. I'm still not 100%, even though he's saying the same stuff.
I was going to say, there's every chance that Punk could be working all of us, but also, like, do you know what? I just kind of feel bad for Punk because he's had this big old UFC fight, he's had this amazing court trial. All anyone ever talks about is like, oh, when are you wrestling again? Are you coming back? Are you going to come back to wrestling? He's like, mate, how many more times do I have to say I am done with professional wrestling?
He didn't help himself because the day after the trial, he said, never say never. And he said, no one's ever approached me and said, here is my exact offer. Here's the price. Here's who you'll be wrestling. This. He says no one's ever said that. They've always approached him and gone, if you ever feel like doing something again, I'm here for you. And Punk's go, that's not an offer to me.
No.
So, if someone did say that, maybe we could have a bit of fun. So he's his own worst enemy there. Because, of course,
people like
I was up all night. So excited. Anyway, but back to Chris Jericho. So, like how we said, if Punk were to turn up at All In, he shouldn't wrestle a match because they've already sold out. But it would be great for him to show up and set up a match at All In 2.
Yes.
In the Chicago crowd as well. And I think that's where Jericho could find some value here. That's where Jericho shouldn't have his eye on getting paid for an appearance at All In, but he should for like a share of the gate at All In 2.
Mm-hmm.
And you see how much of an entrepreneur he is with his crews and everything, and how he's got a lot of those guys, the Ring of Honor guys, Cody, Kenny Omega, they're on that cruise.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like these guys are chatting. Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho, Don Callis, they put together that Wrestle Kingdom 12 match earlier this year. So you're saying you're telling me there's a chance.
Yeah.
So I would have Chris Jericho appear and do that crazy violent beatdown of someone at All In 1 to set up an All In 2. Then you've got Punk and Jericho. I'm running away with my fantasy booking here to build All In 2. And I keep coming back when I think about this to what Jericho said when it became apparent that he was going to go to New Japan. He said he looked at Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor, and that fight that nobody ever thought would happen. And he thought, how can I do that?
Yeah. Well, apparently sorry to cut you off, carry on.
Oh, and then he came up with the idea of Jericho versus Omega that was facilitated through Don Callis. We salute you, Don Callis. And this is a similar level of, oh my God, I didn't expect that. Jericho's there.
Yes.
And like you said, like him showing up at All In would not devalue him. It would make him even bigger if that's like one of 2 more appearances he makes this year.
Exactly. And something that you said as well, we're talking about Cody, like do Cody and the Bucks want to spend the money on bringing Jericho in because they've already sold out? Do they need to bring a Jericho in? Like even as a short-term thing, I kind of think you do, because the other side of it, it's not just selling out 10,000 seats. You want to try and make this the best show it possibly can be. You want to try and make this an incredibly newsworthy show. You look at what like Vince did with the first WrestleMania. The first WrestleMania was all about like, look at these people, name after name after name, moment after moment after moment. Because like the more you do it, the more press you get, and the more attention you get to build up anticipation for that next show. Like if they do All In and it's just filled with good matches that I could have seen in Ring of Honor, then like why am I then incentivized to go to All In 2? So I think, from Cody and the Bucks, they've got to try and make this an incredible show.
Plus, there seems to be a lot of eyes, executive eyes, on All In, because if something sells out in half an hour for 10,000 seats, that's going to get up to the guys with the money. And Meltzer's alluded to top TV executives keeping a very close eye on what's happening with All In. And now a story's come out that Sinclair, the owner of Ring of Honor, are looking to run Madison Square Garden next year. And that is directly off the back of WWE getting that $1 billion deal with Fox, reportedly, and the All In sellout.
Yeah.
So that's why they're thinking. So Jericho, so on one side of the scale is the Vince McMahon problem and how he would really burn a bridge with WWE. And I actually think that is enough to stop Jericho doing it.
Yeah.
But in terms of legacy and just what's the next thing Jericho can do that will top, because it's very hard to top what he's done in New Japan now. I'm sure he's capable of it because he's a bloody genius, is to appear at All In and then be a focal point of getting that All In promotion on TV, and then it's a viable wrestling promotion going forward. If those executives are at All In and go, I want to make something of this.
Absolutely. It'd be interesting if Sinclair are, if it is Sinclair that are one of these sort of like production companies that are showing an interest in it, because Sinclair are, a massive corporation.
Well, I've never read that Sinclair have interest in All In.
Sorry,
it's just,
I was tying stories together.
Yeah, they're running Ring of Honor in Madison Square Garden.
Yes, that was my. That's all. But by the way, that's a massive thing because apparently, from what I've read on that, they're looking to run it like WrestleMania weekend. Like the Saturday before WrestleMania, because it's in New York.
In the Barclays Center, yeah.
Well, and they're going to be, so NXT is going to be in the Barclays Center, and ROH will be in Madison Square Garden, like on the same night.
You'll have a lot of international fans there. That is very interesting.
Yeah.
And just for stats fans, no other wrestling promotion has ever run Madison Square Garden. Not since the 1920s.
It's because WWE essentially had the monopoly on it. The deal they signed was that, that's why WCW could never run Madison Square Gardens, because it was WWF's territory and no one else was allowed to run it.
And it's because WWE are now running the Barclays Center for their big events, not for house shows. Like The Undertaker's coming back for a house show at Madison Square Garden.
It's because it's Vince's mecca.
Yeah, but that doesn't stop the Garden from being fully, not jealous, but feel a bit miffed.
Yeah.
I would feel a bit miffed if I was in a relationship with WWE.
But it's one of these things, like Triple H was saying this on the conference call about the NXT show, about TakeOver Chicago, but also about the UK shows they're going to be doing next week. And he was talking about how he has always wanted to do a show at the Royal Albert Hall. Like, he worked the show the last time WWE did it, which I can't remember, he thinks it was in 96. He's almost certain that he worked it, but he can't quite remember. But he himself has always wanted to run a show at Royal Albert Hall because he loves the venue. He said it's one of the, I think his words were it's the sort of venue that when you walk into Madison Square Garden, you're like, whoa. He said you get the same feeling when you walk into Royal Albert Hall.
It's a beautiful place.
But the problem is, it's too small for a WWE show because they're but for NXT, it's the perfect size. And for this UK thing, it's the perfect size. And it's almost like that what Madison Square Garden has become now. They love running stuff there, but they've become almost too big for MSG.
It's a shame. Well, MSG's very expensive to run, and
they would never do a WrestleMania there again.
It's got a smaller capacity.
Yes.
So it's not like you'll be losing on two fronts there. You'll be losing on tickets and you'll be losing on hire. But it really is a shame because it would be nice to see Raw maybe 3 or 4 times a year come from a Manhattan Center, come from a more intimate place, and you can really get the feel of an indie show. I know WWE, that's what NXT is, so I totally understand the business thing. So we've got some other news. Ronda Rousey leaving WWE.
Yeah, clickbait. So this comes from
Ric Flair's fault.
So Ric Flair. Ric Flair was in an interview with Hulk Hogan and Chris Van Vliet, I believe his name is.
Yeah, he's a good interviewer, actually.
And in that, Van Vliet was asking Flair about the potential for Charlotte. Oh, sorry, I got something in my eye. For Rousey,
emotional.
I am a little bit.
It's because they're going to make magic.
That's what it is. Oh, woo!
This is gonna be good.
So
Not now, Charlotte.
No, Charlotte. Ric Flair said in this interview, he was asked about whether or not Charlotte and Ronda Rousey could headline WrestleMania next year, as per the rumor. And Ric Flair was like, hey, if they're going to do it, they need to do it quick, because Ronda's only signed a year and then she's out of there because she wants to start a family. So, as we said in the WrestleTalk news, if she has only signed a 1-year deal, that means that expires at the Royal Rumble, because that's when she signed. So she's done at Royal Rumble.
It was even a Raw segment where she officially signed the WWE contract.
Exactly.
It's legally binding, right?
Pretty sure it is.
Especially if you put someone through a table.
Yeah, well, that's how you do things in WWE. You have rather than signatures, you have to put someone through the table onto the contract. That's how it gets signed. They look for the dent in the contract, but as I speculated in the news, unless she signs an extension that takes her through to WrestleMania, or it could be that she is there for a year. They said, we'll sign you for a year and we'll see how it goes. With the look to when we come to the end of the year, we'll renegotiate a new deal, we'll renegotiate a new number, and we'll just do it as a rolling deal. Because Ronda said when she signed, she told ESPN, I'm in this for the long haul. This is my life for the next few years now. I'm going to be doing WWE as a full-time thing. And for what Dave Meltzer was writing in the Wrestling Observer, which I find very interesting, is that apparently when WWE have been negotiating their TV deals with Fox and with USA Network and MSNBC, it's been almost based around the fact that they have Ronda Rousey on a multi-year deal.
I remember Meltzer told a story about that meeting with Triple H and, well, I don't know if Triple H was there, but like George Barrios and Michelle Wilson and the very elite WWE higher-ups and Rupert Murdoch and the people at Fox. In that presentation, Ronda Rousey was so prominently featured.
Yes.
So they know that she's the difference maker in these TV deals.
Because they haven't built any stars of their own. So they've had to rely on someone to come in and give them a star.
Yeah, Roman Reigns doesn't have the same appeal of like, oh, well, that's $1 billion right there.
But I haven't said that. Isn't that pretty much the promo that she had when she came in? They had all the other WWE going like she's such a star. Like what an absolute athlete she is coming in, making them all seem like really pants and rubbish. Yeah. And she's just awesome and ooper duper. So I think this whole thing is interesting. Of course, it could just be Flair just saying what he has heard.
Yes.
Mishearing something. But according to Ric Flair, she's only signed a year deal because her plan is to have children. And she has been very open and honest about wanting to have children and start a family. So, you don't want to leave that too long, I suppose. But, who knows? Who knows what's going on?
Well, I would argue, and I totally get that it could just be Ric Flair mishearing stuff. But the reason it coming from Ric Flair more than anyone else is because he is the dad of Charlotte.
Yes.
He's very close to Charlotte.
Tell that to YouTube comments, mate. You shouldn't trust anything that Flair says. He's a doddering old man, I think, as people put it.
He'll know, just through passing conversations with Charlotte, like, how maybe these longer term plans.
Can you imagine Ric Flair and Charlotte, like when they sit down for Sunday dinner, they sit down for their nice roast and they pass across the cranberry sauce together? Do you think Ric Flair is not asking about what her WWE plans are at the moment? Of course not. He's a wrestler. He loves wrestling. He likes talking about wrestling.
He's not just Charlotte's dad either. He's very good friends with Triple H,
yes,
the guy who runs the company. I think they look at the roast. Charlotte stands between Rick and Rick's wife and goes, "This is gonna be good. Woo!
It's gonna be tasty."
A bit of Extreme Rules news. The Pittsburgh local advertisements have had Daniel Bryan versus The Miz.
God, loose lips Pittsburgh, isn't it? So the venue itself, which is hosting Extreme Rules, advertised that it was going to be a 6-man main event, was it? It was Braun, Roman, and Bobby Lashley.
This was a while ago, yeah.
Versus Owens, Zayn, and Jinder?
Yes, it was something like that. And everyone was like, well, no, that's a Raw TV main event. Yeah. You're talking about a pay-per-view here.
Yeah, well, it's a pay-per-view without Brock Lesnar, so you've got to try and do something, haven't you, I suppose. And but they were also advertising The Miz versus Daniel Bryan versus Big Cass. So that was like the two matches that the venue itself had advertised. Those were going to be like the big headlining matches for both brands. But now there's a local advertising around Pittsburgh that's advertising. In fact, it's going to be Daniel Bryan versus The Miz. And while the arena didn't say that Ronda was going to be there, this radio advertisement is saying Ronda's going to be there.
Card subject to change. And as we can see, it already has changed from Bryan Cass to Bryan Miz. But that fills me with hope that this Bryan Big Cass feud will climax with a Bryan victory
Again.
at Money in the Bank. Again, yeah.
So
and then
that's all
face
he's
Miz.
done, really, in this feud, is stand tall.
Which kind of makes me think
Which is ironic.
Miz isn't winning the briefcase.
Well, and he's the one who took the briefcase down on SmackDown Live, which might make you think that he's not winning it either.
And lastly, where have sanity and the authors of pain been, Luke?
Well, this is a really interesting one.
thought this was fascinating.
And it's funny as well, because when Alvarez said this, you suddenly like replay and you're like, oh yeah, I do remember those promos. What were those promos all about? Because we even said at the time. So after Backlash, that was the last pay-per-view, wasn't it? Yes, after Backlash, on Raw, they had this sort of promo segment where you had loads of people talking about how they were going to win Money in the Bank, including Breezango, Heath Slater and Rhino, and The Ascension. And we said at the time, like, wow, like those are sort of names you don't often think might be in Money in the Bank. That's a bit weird. And then it was never mentioned again. Apparently the reason why is because there were meant to be 3 Money in the Bank ladder matches this year. The men's, women's, and a tag team one.
And that had been rumoured by multiple places.
Yes,
yeah.
And that's why Authors of Pain and Sanity were both called up after WrestleMania, so they could try and bolster up the tag teams that are going into this Money in the Bank tag team ladder match. Now, what Alvarez has said is that the timeline that was told to him was that WWE didn't want to announce all 3 matches on the same night. So they announced the men's and the women's, shot the promos with Breezango, Ascension, Heath Slater and Rhino, with the idea that, hey, we've got 6 weeks until Money in the Bank. We've got loads of time before we can announce it. And then in between that, decided, nah, we're not going to do that anymore. So those promos were actually just forgotten about. We're just ignoring it, and we're just doing the 2 ladder matches instead. You can have a barbecue segment and a battle royal, and you lads can go on the pre-show. Like, that's your tag team for the show instead.
Well, yeah, that's quite a big... to me, that really betrays what's happened here, that the SmackDown tag match has just been thrown together in the last couple of weeks with no real build or thought. It's Bludgeon Brothers versus Gallows and Anderson. Gallows and Anderson disappeared from TV for quite a while, around the same time as all this stuff happened. And they're on the pre-show. And Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel versus Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt, the Raw tag match, isn't actually on the card.
What?
Not from what I understand, it is not on the Money in the Bank card.
They've been talking about it though. That was the whole point, wasn't it? To create say it was number 1 contenders.
Have a look. Feel like it's not on the card. Not on WWE's website.
Oh, amazing.
So it's only 10 matches. That's where I made the mistake the other day.
Right, of course.
So I just assumed.
Yeah,
but they've never said it's on Money in the Bank.
That's very true. They just said they're the number 1 contenders. Oh, that's so interesting, man.
And that's just been thrown together. The B team were just a thing.
They came together on the show we were at.
But that could conceivably have been brought together with the idea to build them for a comedy spot in the Money in the Bank tag ladder match. I just want to... You hear about these plans, and me and you are the same, in that we love finding out about the stuff that never made it to air. That's essentially what this channel's based on. And there must be some concept art designs for the tag briefcases.
Oh, I bet you there is.
Is it 2?
Yeah.
Is it one big one?
No, it'd definitely be 2. It has to be 2, yeah. And they run down together to cash in. And it makes sense. I was like, there's been no tag teams on TV. Like, the Usos have been missing for a long time. And the other thing with Authors of Pain and Sanity...
The Bar?
The Bar is another one, yeah. Apparently, as well, with Authors of Pain, one of them currently has a visa issue, which is why they're not on TV. But Brian Alvarez said, like, that's what's been reported. I don't know if that's the case. And he said there's also something interesting as well, that there may be a legal naming issue with Sanity.
Yes, I've heard that, yeah.
Yes, and the same with like when Ruby Riots came up and they wanted to call them the Riot Squad, and they were like, well, you can't because Riot Squad is already a trademark term, so they just put an extra T on Riot.
What are they going to do to Sanity? How could they... Well, I guess the capitalization...
I was going to say, yeah, I thought that's how they could get around it. But so that's also a possibility as to why Sanity haven't debuted and why we haven't heard their names been mentioned for over a month.
You know what I would do? I'd pop an exclamation mark at the end of Sanity.
Yep.
Sanity! So you have to read it like that.
Or,
I'd like in Eric Young's crazed voice.
Or a terabang. Like, so it's just
like...
Sanity?
No. Sanity! That's... Because it's like, that's how you would say insanity.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay,
anyway, should we get on with some crap gimmicks? As you hopefully saw in yesterday's WrestleTalk news episode, we have debuted our first ever crap gimmick roster signing, CG Dub, which is crap gimmick wrestling, thanks to the very talented Lewis Tillett, who you can follow on Instagram at Lewis Tillett Art. He is going to be transforming, conceptualizing the crap gimmick wrestlers that we sign, and he has started off with the WrestleBot 1000 gimmick.
So good.
Which is awesome.
Like when he sent it across to us, the first thing he said was like, "It looks like a trading card."
Yeah.
Oh, and then all of a sudden, like merchandise like started going up in my head. I'm like, "Let's do trading cards."
We need more. Don't we? But yeah, it's really cool. We're really happy with it. Thank you very much, Lewis. He's just a fan of the show who got in touch.
Oh,
and
it's so good, though.
He's made it, yeah. So we're very happy with
his
that.
art is mwah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, we really like it. It's really nice. And I told you this. I'm so happy when I opened up the examples he'd sent of his work. And I was like, oh, thank God I really like them. Because like I've got quite particular tastes when it comes to comic book style drawing, and this was right up my alley. So very proud of WrestleBot 1000. He is like the first. He's the top guy at the moment.
He is. I mean, do we want to announce who's going to be next, or are we?
No, because we're still like if no one gets signed today, we'll do another classic.
Yeah,
so like
into the classic, into the vault.
Not Fishmonger, of course, but let's see who we've got who could potentially be visualised in Lewis Tillett's incredible mind.
So if you are new to this show, Crap Gimmicks is our little fictional wrestling roster where you send in your crap gimmick suggestions. So we're thinking like the 1990s WWF mode of like you are a wrestler and a blank. That sort of thing. Or pun-based, we tend to like pun-based things, or just crazy ideas that wouldn't really work in the WWE or in any wrestling promotion, but would feel right at home amongst other types of crap gimmicks. And if you do want to get in touch with me, if you want to send me your suggestion, it's luke@wrestletalk.com. But please do bear in mind that we only get to do about like 2 or 3 a week. I currently have a backlog of around 65.
Yeah,
so,
that cupboard's really set you back when you were locked in there.
Pretty much, yeah. And also, there's a guy that always leaves a comment for the GOAT, which we've read. Thank you, but it's not one we were going to sign. So, yeah. I mean, thank you for your persistence. I just don't think we're going to sign it.
Yeah, we do. So if you've posted it more than 3 times on the YouTube comment section, we've seen it.
Yeah, we have.
So you don't have to keep doing it after that.
Yes.
It's like a polite, silent rejection.
So anyway, Tom Wolfe has got in touch to say hello.
The Tom Wolfe?
Tom Wolfe.
Wow, big fan.
Hello, Luke, Ollie, and the Swaff Nation. So he's even saying hello to you guys. My crack gimmick is the Prof Wrestler, as in Professor plus wrestler. His music starts with a loud school bell to announce that class is in session. He dresses like a science teacher and claims that he is here to teach fans and his opponents the true science of pro wrestling. In ring, he's really good, scientific, mat-based. The commentators can put over his use of leverage, anatomy, and other scientific-sounding words. His fatal flaw is every match he picks one overlooked move to make the subject of his lesson. Before every match, he explains the mechanics behind, say, a DDT, a superkick, a sleeper hold, or any other overused move. He promises to finish the match with said move, giving him a clear target for the match. However, this allows his opponents to scout the move, often leading to his defeat.
That's really good.
It's very good.
It's got a strong visual, like the lab coat. I assume he'd wrestle in. He'll have glasses,
pocket protector.
Yeah, and the elbow pads on his. I mean, he could even wrestle in a blazer with the elbow pads.
Yeah. Like that.
Disguised like that. I like the idea of him educating the audience because that actually really gets the move over.
Yes, I know. Yeah,
like it's actually quite effective in its crapness.
And also, perhaps this is going to just be me showing my age. But like whenever I think of a science teacher, I always think of overhead projectors, like using that, like really
wheeling
old school,
wheeling
it to the ring, putting on the clear sheets so you can like show the anatomy. But then also using that as a foreign object.
So I don't know why. The only thing that jarred with me was anatomy. When I heard Prof Wrestler, that's brilliant because it's really bad. That's perfect. I figured it would be more about angles and gravity, and anatomy feels like another character.
Well, it's biology, isn't it?
I know they're all in the same mix, but I like the idea of when I plant him down, like that. it's more physics rather than biology in my head. So speed, acceleration of the DDT going down equals hurt.
Like that, but we need to make sure this doesn't turn into Matt Stryker in ECW because that was awful.
Or Mike Knox
or Dean Douglas.
Mike Knox used to have, because he used to talk about physically picking apart the anatomy of his opponent. It was really good promo. I used to really like Mike Knox.
So, do we want to sign a prof wrestler?
Should we decide at the end?
Okay, let's
after we've done all the, and then we can make it a bigger deal.
Do you want to hear a great name from one of our emailers?
Hit me up.
John Sexton. Like, talk about a great... Like, he should be in a rock band, like, from the 1970s. He has suggested Western Canadian millennial lacrosse player. It's not an anagram or anything, but I think that's the character's name.
Western Canadian millennial lacrosse player.
Now, I will say, I feel like this email, or this suggestion, is because John Sexton hates quote-unquote millennials. However, his description of them is not actually a millennial. But, like, we'll come on to that.
Okay.
So, build from some wacky city like Eyebrow, Saskatchewan, or Flin Flon, Manitoba. He is a young lacrosse player with a terrible millennial first name that is nonetheless infuriatingly misspelled, such as Logan with an E rather than an A, I suppose, for Logan.
Yeah.
Yep. Trentin with a Y, or Ian rather than I-A-N, E-A-N. See, that's my first issue, I will say.
E-A-N.
It's in the game. EA Sports, they're all the same. He comes to the ring in lacrosse gear, including the stick which he uses in no DQ matches. He no-sells chops because, quote, I've been hit harder, I play lacrosse. His finish is the sharpshooter because his father bought it from the Hart family for him. Speaking of his father, he gets random title shots because, quote, my father is a very powerful man, and if he loses, he will throw a fit, pout, and then warn his opponents of incurring his father's wrath. So once again, I feel like this is a character that's not really, like, it's not gelling together. It just feels like you hate preppy kids, I guess.
Is that it?
Well, I don't know, because then, like, I feel like a prep kid, like, who is a lacrosse player, that doesn't tie into a millennial.
Yeah.
Also, millennials don't have wacky misspelt names, because we're millennials, and our names are spelt as, quote-unquote, they usually should be. You're thinking of the
hipsters.
The generation after us.
This is a... it just doesn't... There's not much consistency here. This, to me, is a spoiled rich kid thing, but I don't... Plus, like, I'm not a fan of... You've given us... He hasn't got a name. Like, it's up to us to come up with the name.
Well, he's the West Canadian millennial lacrosse player.
He's infuriatingly misspelled names, such as Logan.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you should just say, his name is this, which is stupidly misspelled for some reason. So, like, we shouldn't have to do any work here. It's got to be a fully formed pitch. And so there's the consistency isn't really... You've got some consistency from lacrosse gear downwards with the rich dad, but then, like, the rich dad and lacrosse, sorry.
Is it only rich kids that play lacrosse?
Maybe. They play lacrosse in American Pie.
I was about to say, that's my only go-to of lacrosse is American Pie, because Oz plays it.
Mick Foley used to play a lot of lacrosse.
Did he really?
Yeah, I know from in his book. He talks about it a lot. He wasn't rich.
But I'm very bad when I read autobiographies, because I tend to skip all those parts until they get to the wrestling bits.
Luke.
I know,
That's the rags to riches story.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to... we reveal at the end. I mean, you can...
I don't know where it's going to go just yet, though. And then our last one is coming from Tessa. This is a tag team. The Marathons are a tag team of two guys who are a medium build, one with sandy blonde hair, the other with dark hair, and she's written updos, which I'm guessing is like man buns, maybe?
Okay.
Yeah?
Like a top knot.
Yeah, like a top knot,
right.
Yes. They come out wearing tracksuits with lines on the side, tennis shoes, and white undershirts, similar to the Spirit Squad. Their entrance song is The Eye of the Tiger. They run down the ramp to break a finish line ribbon and give a jumping celebration to fans, in quotes, waving flags as if they've actually won a marathon. On the Tron, it has a race countdown on your marks. On your marks, get ready, set, go. Their finisher is the 5K, which is basically a running suplex. Their promos are lines that end with their names, such as, 'cause we're the best and we go all night long, the Marathons. Backstage segments of them, one of them blowing a white whistle while the other runs laps around the backstage area. When they are interviewed, they cut short by saying it's marathon time and run off. So that's the marathons. I think there's some good in there.
That's also good, because that's got a lot of, pun intended, mileage, because you run through. They don't have to just run through that finish line thing that they can break when they come down to the ring, but they could run round a bit to get away from people round the ring. They can also stop and get fans to give them bottles of water.
Yes, like that.
And they go, yeah.
Do you know what?
A lot of stretching before they get into the ring.
Yeah, I mean, I think that basically, like, from your backstage stuff, I don't think it overly works, but all the stuff previously, I really like. My change would be not to use the Eye of the Tiger, though. It would be use that dun 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 dun. The Olympic music.
You mean the
Chariots
of Fire?
Yes. Yeah. And like almost like doing slow motion running, like while the music is as they come down to the ring.
So I really like that. But I feel like you need to go back and properly develop that into something better. But there's promise there. I really do like that. So I guess that means
we are going to sign one person from this week's inductions, and that is Prof Wrestler. Congratulations, Tom Wolfe. We look forward to doing business with you. And if you want to send something into the mailbag, you must first become a pledge hammer by donating to us on Patreon, or pledging to us on Patreon, whichever way you want to phrase it. And then you can leave a comment there in our wicked community that we've got, or send me an email and let me know that you are a pledge hammer. And I do check, so don't think you can just trick me and get one over on old Luke over here. Our first comes in from Buttered Toast.
Buttered Toast.
Was interested in what your favourite Rock the Dwayne Johnson movie is. I really like the new Jumanji, as did I. I thought the new Jumanji was awesome, actually.
Still haven't seen it.
It's so good.
Yeah, I really want to.
I gave it 5 Karen Gillan midriffs out of 5.
Ooh.
It was just a great movie. Jack Black is so funny in it.
How dare you objectify a objectified character? Which wasn't really objectification.
Yes,
it was actually a meta joke.
It's purposely, yes. It's very clever. It's really clever, actually, that film.
So, really good question. And we've actually opened up Dwayne Johnson's IMDb page. It's still loading.
It took a while to load, yep.
It's still loading because he's attached to everything. So this could all change in a few weeks' time once Skyscraper's out.
Well,
my God.
I went to go see Jurassic World last night, and that trailer played before it. And hot damn, I mean, I turned to my wife and I was like, it's Die Hard in a building.
Yeah,
which
a bigger building.
But a bigger building.
And you're like, that's not different enough. What else can we do? Dwayne Johnson hasn't got one leg. So he's an amputee with a little stick leg thing. Yes. And there's a great bit in the trailer where he runs off the top of a crane and he jumps. Oh, it looks glorious.
It's so funny as well, because remember that they released the poster for it, and like it's that image of The Rock jumping off this crane to go into the building, and everyone points out, I was like, well, based on his trajectory, he is missing this. Like there is absolutely no way he's making that jump.
It's the end of the movie. It's just
but yeah, so I think that actually looks like a hell of a lot of fun. My wife is so excited. She cannot wait to go and see that.
So I've written down a few. I've got some runners up because I love The Rock's screen presence. I always have done from his Welcome to the Jungle days.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, you and I are of an age that when The Rock first announced he was going into movies, like I went to The Mummy Returns because The Rock was in it.
Yeah. Oh, well, I was really excited for The Mummy Returns. The Mummy was my favourite film up until that point, I think. Yeah.
Not Godzilla 1998?
That's up there. Second. I've got The Scorpion King, rushed to see that as well. Mm-hmm. And it was around the time where I didn't have critical capabilities, so just like, yeah. I watched the movie. I'm happy. But Southern Tales doesn't really get talked about a lot.
For good reason as well, because it's not a very good film.
Incorrect. It is. It is a complicated film. It is a very mixed bag because some bits make you want to leave because it's so asinine.
It's so rubbish.
But when it gets good, you're like, oh my God, this is really good. And then it gets really bad again. And it's like he does that about 5 times. It peaks and troughs.
Remember all that Kevin Smith stuff? Like where it's really old Kevin Smith? Do you remember that's like right at the end of the film where they discover, and Kevin Smith's like in really like old makeup and stuff.
Yeah. That rings a bell. Because this was, I've forgotten the name. It's Richard something.
I know, I should know this because I wrote my A-level media paper on Donnie Darko.
Donnie Darko, I bet you did.
So this is everyone did at that time.
Well, it was the guy who directed Donnie Darko, his huge hit, and everyone, like, critical darling. His next film is going to be this really complicated Southern Tales epic, and he could work with anyone. And at the time, I thought, wow, he could work with anyone. And he chose Jessica Simpson, Sean William Scott, and The Rock.
And Kevin Smith.
What a guy. But now, it's probably because a lot of people passed on the script. And that's where those people were in their careers, where they were like the fourth or fifths. But Rock's really good in it. He's this bit. Justin Timberlake's really good in it as well.
Well, I'd actually say that The Rock, despite the fact that he has picked some absolute clunkers in his career, some of the films that he has done, like we were going through the IMDb, we were like, oh, that's bad, oh, that one's bad as well, that one's bad. But he's usually very, very good.
Yeah.
Like, Tooth Fairy, not a good film. The Rock, however, very good in it.
Totally. But yeah, so Southland Tales was just like a passing mention. Now, Pain and Gain, I also really enjoyed. I get the argument that it doesn't understand how to be self-reflexive, and that's kind of right.
I mean, it's a Michael Bay film.
Yeah, but it's a Michael Bay film poking fun at the idea of being really big and muscly and objectifying women, but also does those things.
Yes.
Unself-consciously.
I would say, though, it does cast, what's her name from Pitch Perfect, Fat Amy.
Oh, yeah, Rebel Wilson.
Rebel Wilson. They cast her in the film, but at no point do they, we've cast Rebel Wilson because, she's a bit larger than your average film star, and that's why we've cast her. Isn't that funny? It's like, it felt like that character could have been written for anyone, but they just wanted to work with Rebel Wilson.
Well, isn't Anthony Johnson's character in it? Oh, no, sorry, Anthony McKay's character.
Anthony Mackie, you mean?
Anthony Mackie got there eventually.
Yeah. Adam McKay.
He really likes the larger blonde lady. I thought that was part of the joke.
Maybe
That's why.
I'll be honest, I've got to stop you there. I didn't finish watching it because I did find the film unwatchable.
I thought it was a bit of fun. However, and one more honourable mention to Fast and Furious 5, which really is the best Fast and Furious movie. That's when The Rock debuts as Luke Hobbs, and that's the big heist movie in Brazil. Really great, genuine movie. However, for me, Fast and Furious 6 cannot be touched.
Is that the one you went to the press screening for?
And I got drunk on the free booze.
Such a good time.
Everyone did. Everyone was loaded on the Budweisers, the Steve Weisers that they were handing out willy-nilly, and I was high-fiving people next to me. People I'd never met. I went alone.
Oh, dear me.
And then, when the Staith turns up at the end. So I'm going to say Fast and Furious 6. Sorry, that was a very, very long answer. What about you?
Well, actually, I'm going early because I really like Walking Tall. And I'm a big, big fan of that movie. And at that time as well, I was a huge fan of wrestling. I was a huge fan of Jackass. So The Rock and Johnny Knoxville coming together on screen, I was like, finally, at the same time. It was two of my favourite things coming together.
Finally?
Exactly, finally. I've been waiting for this for a good 6 months now. So it was I really enjoyed it. It's a really good remake as well. So I think I'd probably go with Walking Tall, which is quite early in his career, but Jumanji I thought was absolutely awesome. It was really, really good. I really suppose I should give a shout out to Rampage, buy my book, because it's about video game movies. But what I will say about The Rock, what I really like about The Rock as an actor and his presence in Hollywood, is that he has become just like this figure that can walk into any studio and be like, that's the film I'm making, and they go, okay, and just hand over a load of money to him. Rampage was struggling to get out of the gate, just could not get made whatsoever, until The Rock came in and was like, yeah, I want to do this film next, and they were like, okay, and then he was just like, yeah, and I'm going to bring in my the director I worked with on San Andreas, I'm going to bring in these writers that I've worked with before, and we're going to make this film happen. 10 months later, the film's there, and you're like, cool, yep, he made it happen.
The Rock gets stuff done through pure willpower.
It's him and Wonder Woman about the only things in the DCEU that seem to be as certain. He is playing Black Adam and Wonder Woman is getting its sequel.
Yeah, he's playing Black Adam whether you like it or not, and he's getting 2 movies. Yeah, it's because he's got that $7 production studio house.
Yes.
And like on this IMDb page, it really shows what you're saying is right, because there are so many things announced, pre-production.
And I was going to say,
filming.
IMDb as well, because it's a fan-controlled thing. Studios can do their stuff, but it is mostly just fan-controlled. IMDb Pro, which is where studios and and agents and stuff use, the list is even bigger. It's 3 times as long because he's just working on so many different projects.
On here, I have not heard that before. Rock as big in Big Trouble in Little China?
Yeah, see, that's been rumoured for some for some while
That'll
now.
be fun. Okay, next question.
Next question. Where are we? You've opened up the wrong
here.
document. Come on, mate. From Asaya Webb. Hi, Luke. I recently got some feedback from some friends who stopped watching wrestling, and their reason is because they feel current wrestlers aren't relatable like old ones. The Rock, Batista, John Cena, Jeff Hardy, Reg Mysterio, Randy Orton, The Undertaker, Goldberg, etc. I personally disagree. For me, I relate to Johnny Gargano, Daniel Bryan, and Becky Lynch for being underdogs who overcome, TJ Perkins, Xavier Woods, and Kenny Omega for being avid gamers, and Braun Strowman for being the guy who just obliterates everyone and everything. Their current roster is more than The current roster is more than enough to create a new special era, but do you think people lose interest because of WWE's inability to create new stars to replace the past ones? Or do people not want to give this new breed of talent, who are mostly independent guys, a chance? Now, what's interesting as well about that list you gave there, that was quite like The Rock, Batista, John Cena, that went, and like The Undertaker, Goldberg, that went from like late 90s into that sort of 2006 era.
Yeah, I would never put John Cena and Jeff Hardy in the same bracket. Sorry, John Cena and Randy Orton in that same bracket as all those other guys.
I thought you said as each other. Like,
yeah.
I was going to say, mate, they had...
Never again. So I don't know if you... Maybe the wording's wrong, because I wouldn't say relatable about any of those people. Like, I wouldn't say I relate to The Rock.
No.
I wouldn't say I relate to Braun Strowman these days. I don't think you do either. I don't think anyone on the planet relates to Braun Strowman, because the whole point of him is that he's this unrelatable monster who's just cool, and you buy into him for that reason.
Yeah.
But maybe there is an argument there that a lot of the guys are being portrayed as ordinary guys in the Daniel Bryan mode, the Johnny Gargano mode, that there isn't that extra level rock star quality about them, which is why the fans, more mainstream fans at least, casual fans, are losing interest. Because it's definitely WWE's fault for the majority that they're not pushing guys like stars like they used to in the Attitude Era. Or the wrong people as stars, like with Roman Reigns. But it is kind of on the talent as well, to some extent, in that their personalities, when you are just a guy, but you're just a really good guy in the ring, I guess doesn't hook in the casual viewers as much. Daniel Bryan would be the exception to that rule.
Finn Balor, I think, is a really interesting one, because Finn Balor is a lad on the roster who just feels like a lad. He's just a guy that's on the roster. And it's easy to forget he has got that demon persona that he used to do only for takeover shows. They haven't done it for so long because they made the idiotic decision to say it's a separate character, that he doesn't feel special now. But when he used to do the face paint, he felt special and unique. Now he just feels just a guy. And that's on WWE for doing things like that. You had a guy that you could have, look how special and awesome this guy is. But yeah, when people like The Rock, Randy Orton and The Undertaker, I feel like those some guys, they're lightning in a bottle, and it's hard to then find those guys again.
Yeah, it's not that they're not relatable. It's that it's almost the opposite, that they're not big enough.
Yes, they don't feel like big enough deals. We have got two more questions here. An odd one from Matt Noble. In order of best to worst, rank these: TNA in its heyday, New Japan in its heyday, Ring of Honor in its heyday. Now, what I find odd about this question is those
specific.
I don't think those are specific. Like, what would you say? Like, what's New Japan's heyday? Like, surely New Japan's heyday is now.
Yeah, I guess there's an argument for, we don't know enough about history to go to the Antonio Inoki days, yeah. Or anything, because they were drawing a lot more money back then than they were now. Is that their heyday? So we're going to do our definitions of the heyday from our limited fan perspective, which is, so New Japan is now, or the last 2 years, I suppose. ROH would have been late noughties when you've got Bryan, Danielson, McGuinness. Mm-hmm. Punk actually left quite early, but Aries, Joe.
Oh, Joe had gone to TNA by that point, I suppose, because Joe had gone to TNA by 2006, I want to say 2005 maybe.
So maybe the actual heyday of ROH is 4 to 6.
Just going to say a bit earlier than that. Yeah, that's what I would have said.
Okay. And see, but I've only watched that in retrospect.
And especially that's when you got Punk and Raven as well, which was great.
But Steen and Generico come in late, and Jerry Lynn was back then.
Yep.
And Impact, TNA. I mean, I guess that would be 06 to 08.
Or I'd have said 04 to... Oh, actually, no, even 04, because that's still when you had, like, Jarrett as champion and, like, Nash with no-showing shows and Waltman no-showing things as well. So, yeah, maybe you want to go, like, 2005, maybe, which is when they started focusing things around AJ Daniels and Joe.
Yeah,
and,
that's...
like, for your X Division stuff.
To the Kurt Angle Samoa Joe.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
05 to 08.
I'll say 09. But, yes, I see what you're saying, yeah.
Cool. So, in that very arbitrary answer to your question, me personally, I would go New Japan top, Ring of Honor, then Impact at the bottom.
Yeah, it's tough as well because, like, I'm inclined to agree with you, but I loved that TNA era so much that I do want to place it higher. But then I'm like, oh man, but that Punk Raven feud was just like, it was absolute gold. I'm just going to say because it's arbitrary, I agree. No, in fact, because it's so arbitrary, I'm going to disagree, and I'm going to put TNA above Ring of Honor.
Outrageous.
Mason has got our final question. I'd like to start by thanking the whole WrestleTalk team, even El Fakador, I guess.
So trustworthy.
After racking my brain for a mailbag question, I think I have one I like. Now, the premise is that Luke and Ollie, you have decided to take each other on in a drunken trivia action. I like drunken trivia action. You're going to head in a pub quiz, and you now must build your team. Which wrestlers do you use and why? The catch here, of course, is that they all have to be in character. I hope you have fun with this question, and of course, I'm looking forward to seeing what my fellow Pledgehammers have to say about it. I love this question.
I love this question. You know how we said the previous question was specific? This is even more so, in a different kind of way. It's a great question. It's a hard one to answer. No, have you got anyone? So how many people are we going to have? Are we going to have 3 wrestlers each to make teams of 4?
Yes, I think that's fair. And I would like a team of 4 for a pub quiz. That's the other question. Do pub quizzes travel overseas? Is it do Americans have pub quizzes? I know they don't have them over in Sweden because my brother essentially introduced them to his university town and made a business off of it.
Nice.
Because he created... Well, I mean, what is his name? His name's English Pub Quiz. And then I was like, oh, wow, an English pub quiz. How quaint.
Someone get on that licensing for the States if you haven't got it already.
Yeah.
So, yes, you go first. Who's going to be kayfabe?
Oh, man, 100%. The first one, Xavier Woods. And he has a PhD. He's probably so smart. He's 100% going on my team.
Who is really... Because I always think Kevin Owens is very smart. But
is that because he can speak a second language?
Yeah, it just. But and Generico, there's like Daniel Bryan.
Of course,
Daniel Bryan's very smart guy.
Great shout. Oh, they've got to be in character as well. That's the other thing. Like Xavier Woods is fine for him to be in character because you can just talk. I mean, you can talk about video games with him.
Past and present.
You want to go past and present?
Yeah. All. Is it just WWE? No, it could be any wrestlers.
God, this is tough. We probably really should have thought about this ahead of time so we could have...
I don't think that would have helped.
I am going to bring across, just because I think they would be... Because the thing with pub quizzes as well, it's not all about the winning. It's about having fun with a pub quiz. Like, it's getting together, having a laugh, being like, oh, do you know this? Oh, I think I know this. Like, it's annoying to be on a pub quiz team where everyone just knows the answers. It's good to be able to argue with people about what the potential answers could be. Like, because you're so adamant that it's something.
Well, I just want to win. So I'm gonna try and make the best combination team of agreeable fellows who are smart. Who's your second?
I am going with Becky Lynch. Because I think going to a pub quiz with Becky Lynch would be such a laugh.
Just get the shots in.
I bet you she would. Yeah.
That's not a slander against the Irish.
Absolutely
not.
She
just seems like fun.
She seems like a lot of fun to be in a pub
this
quiz.
is tough though. I'm trying to think of gimmicks.
And while you're thinking of this,
smart.
I'm going to try and think of who my third is.
There might just be some dead air on the show for a moment. I mean, I've already said Mike Knox. David Otunga.
I suppose, yeah, he's got that law degree, hasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, David Otunga.
But he would be so boring, though.
Hey, that's what I want. I just want us to democratically decide on answers while you're being all rowdy over there and losing.
What was your pub quiz name?
Gary Lineker's Left Wing Thought Police.
Such a...
Which Ian McKellen, Sir Ian McKellen once read out because we went to his pub
That's
and he
such
did a
a
pub
good
quiz.
name.
It was like, Gary Lineker's left wing for police.
Oh, Gandalf, Magneto, just had no idea
Yeah.
what he was saying.
And then you can hear someone like just off the microphone go, "Is that a name?" Because everyone else was Hobbit puns and X-Men puns.
Or like the Spanish Inquisition, which a
Yeah.
lot of people tend to go with.
You shall not quiz.
Yeah. I had a really good one actually, which I really liked.
Any team name that has the word quiz in has been done to death.
It's been totally done. Like
Quizzacaboose,
let's get quizzical. Like that's been. I've heard that several times.
Schindler's Quiz.
That's good.
That's my one. I wasn't allowed to do that one.
Right, I've got to think of a third person.
Yes.
We're well off topic
I've
here.
gotta
We've
think of a
still got
third
our Money in the
person.
Bank predictions to
Do we
record
need
as well.
a third person, or can we just call it a day?
No, I'm going to think of one. I'm trying to think of who I'm going to have fun with in a pub, on a pub quiz team, and that person is going to be. Oh man! I mean, if you get, oh no, he'd be too rowdy. I was going to say Montez Ford, but he'd be far too rowdy in a pub quiz. You wouldn't be able to like settle him down and be like, "No, mate, we're also trying to do a quiz here." So I'm going to say Ember Moon. Because at least then we
get the Dungeons and Dragons
D&D
going.
stuff, yeah. There might be some questions based around that, which we might be able to.
What pub quiz are you going to?
My
You've
pub
picked
quiz.
a video game specialist guy, a Dungeons and Dragons Why do you need those two there
on,
if you're there?
I picked a guy. I suppose I picked a guy with a PhD as well. I mean,
I've got it.
Xavier Woods.
I've got it.
Yeah.
JBL.
Oh, great! Oh no, he'd be
I'd
awful.
cover sports. He
yeah.
would cover sports.
Damn, I didn't think of a sports person. That's a
Now
good.
you've done your.
I've done it now. I've done it now,
we are trashing you
sports,
guys.
though.
We're not just going to beat you. JBL's going to give you all wedges afterwards and pour your beers down your necks.
It really is. You think you can beat us? We've well got this in the head.
And he's gonna take a shine to me, and I'm gonna be his bullying buddy. We're going to walk around, I'm going to start on people, and he's going to finish the fight. It's going to be great. That's all we've got time for in today's show. Click the videos that have just appeared on our laps to catch up with the latest WrestleTalk videos, and this little box here, which subscribes you to the podcast version, where you will get exclusive intros and outros. I've been Ollie Davis, this has been Luke Owen, and that was Rambling.